Hey friends, welcome back to Prepping with Sarge, and I hope you are having a great start to National Preparedness Month. Please check in the description down below. There is all kinds of great videos coming out this month from some of your favorite content creators in the preparedness and homesteaded communities. This is video number 5, and we're going to be talking about 12 crops that preppers and homesteaders ought to be thinking about for long-term survival. There's going to be a lot of information in this video, so let's just go ahead and get started. But don't forget to check down in the description below. And also there's some coupon codes and discount codes down there that you might want to check out. Let's get to it. All right, so the first crop I want to talk to you about is garlic. Why is garlic the first one that I recommend? Well, garlic has a lot of medicinal properties, and it's really good for your immune system. It's very good for your lungs. It's very easy to grow, and once you grow that first crop, you know, you'll have year after year, because basically what you're going to do is your crop that you harvest in late spring is going to also be your seeds crop that you plant in the fall. Now, this is one that tends to throw people off a little bit because you do plant this in the fall, it overwinters, and then you're going to harvest it in late spring, okay? It will survive the winter as long as you get the right one for your area. I've done numerous videos on how to grow garlic. Please don't be intimidated by it. It also is going to add flavor to your life, which is going to be really needed for morale in an SHTF situation. All right, crop number 2 is going to be asparagus. Now, if you've never seen asparagus when it's fully grown, this is what it looks like after you've done your spring harvest. It turns into a fern-like plant. And sometimes there's berries on these plants, but you don't want to eat those berries. What you want to do is you want to get this one started. And the reason why asparagus is such a great crop for homesteaders and preppers is that it's going to give you, after you plant it once and get it started, on the second year, you're going to get a pretty small harvest. On the third year, you're going to get a full harvest. And then for the next 12 years after that, you're going to get it. So this is what it looks like after you've harvested. After you've had your spring harvest, you just let it go. And then in the wintertime, what we're going to do is we're going to cut it all the way back down to the base. And in the next spring, what's going to happen is it's going to come up, it's going to emerge out of the ground into those stalks, just like you see in the grocery store, and you're going to cut them, and then they'll get another harvest, and then you'll cut them again, you'll get another harvest. Usually once it's established, you can get at least 3 harvests each spring, and then it's going to come back for 10 to sometimes up to 20 years. All right, all preppers and homesteaders are going to need a good source of carbohydrates. Now, what I recommend is that you grow either potatoes or sweet potatoes. I particularly like sweet potatoes, but you could make a case for potatoes because you can get more yield out of a smaller space out of regular like russet or Idaho potatoes. Cool thing about sweet potatoes is these leaves are edible in the sweet potatoes. So you can harvest some of these out while you're waiting for your fall harvest of your sweet potatoes, and you can eat these just like spinach. Cook them up with a little bit of butter and salt or some kind of fat if you've got like pig fat or whatever you've got, and a little bit of salt if you've got some salt, and it's going to be very similar to spinach. And sweet potatoes and potatoes, if you store in a cool, dry place, will actually last you hopefully through the winter. So this is a must grow for homesteaders and preppers. All right, next crop I want all of you homesteaders and preppers to think about is some kind of nut tree, right? This is a black walnut tree that you're looking at here. And why do we want to grow some kind of a nut tree? Well, you're going to need those good fats for your SHTF situations, especially when a lot of the animals are going to get thinned out if we get into a really long-term food supply issue where people are going to be just like hunting and hunting and hunting, thinning out the fish, thinning out a lot of the wild game, and you're just still going to need some kind of fat. Now, there are ways to process nut fat into long-term storage. You can check that out. Anthony from Palmetto Prepared has a good video about walnut oil. Definitely want to check that out, but you want to have some kind of nut tree on your homestead. All right, your next one is going to be oregano. Now, if I could only grow one herb in my garden, it would absolutely be oregano. Good news is if you live in the South, this will a lot of times survive through the winter. This particular patch of oregano has lasted several years for me. In the winter, it does tend to die back a little bit, but it always comes back really strong each spring. And as you can see, I have more oregano here than I could possibly use, so sometimes I give it away or I trade it away with somebody else. Oregano is a fantastic crop because not only is it antimicrobial, antiviral, but it's going to add flavor to anything you catch and eat. All right, number 6, you want to grow some kind of citrus. Okay, that can be oranges, that can be peaches, that can be lemons. This is lemons actually, they haven't turned yellow yet. They'll turn yellow probably in December. But history has shown us that when humans try to go without citrus for long periods of time, they end up with a lot of health problems, including scurvy. So you've got to have some access to some kind of citrus. Now, these do not last an extremely long time in storage. So what you would want to do is once these turn yellow and you harvest them, you're going to keep some of the lemon rind, basically, lemon zest, and you can store that. There's also ways you can can up lemons and do different things like that with it. You can dehydrate them also. You could probably do some freeze drying if you've got access to a freeze dryer, but all preppers and homesteaders should be thinking about their citrus needs. All right, next one I'm going to recommend is apples. Now, if you have, especially if you live north of the Mason-Dixon line, apples are going to be a great crop for you to grow. Unfortunately, I don't have any apples on my property. They just don't grow well here on coastal South Carolina. So that's a little bit of a hole in my prepping plan. But if you can grow them, if you live anywhere in the northern states, you should be able to grow apples. And apples are great because you can use them in so many different ways. They're a nice little bit of sweetness, which will add to morale when you can't, necessarily get access to sugar. And also apples, especially certain varieties of apples, do have some pretty good long-term storage value. If you store them right, you can get more than a month out of them, which might help you at the end of your fall harvest as you're trying to get through the winter. Number 8 is a winter squash. Now, why do I recommend a winter squash? Well, that's, again, one of those sources of fresh vegetables that will last you hopefully through the winter. One variety that I do recommend is Waltham butternut squash. If you store it right in a cool, dry, dark place, it will stay for a really long time. Hopefully get you through all the way till spring. You can save your seeds if it's an heirloom variety like Waltham and replant them in the spring so that you have a perpetual harvest. All right, the next one I'm going to recommend is blueberries. Now, blueberries have some of the highest antioxidant content in all of the fruits and vegetables. So blueberries are going to be one of the ones that kind of helps you fight off cancer and free radicals. If we're going to be spending a lot more time outside, which you would probably have to be doing just to keep up with just your food supply issues, that's going to be exposure to a lot of UV. You're going to want to get as much antioxidants into your system as you can, and blueberries is one of the best sources of antioxidants. Not only that, but the leaves, a lot of people don't realize this, that you can make a tea out of the leaves, and it tastes very similar to like a black tea. It's not caffeinated, but it might be one of those things that gives you a little bit of a morale boost, and there's definitely, again, some antioxidants in the leaves as well, some medicinal qualities to that as well. So blueberries is one that you should absolutely be growing. All right, strawberries is another one that I would strongly recommend that homesteaders and preppers consider. Now, strawberries themselves, you're going to get a beautiful harvest after the second year, and then for several years afterwards, it's one of those perpetual harvest crops that we really love, and it's going to add some nice sweetness when you need that morale boost. You can preserve the strawberries through dehydrating, through canning, through freeze drying if you've got access to that. And also it tends to throw off runners, which is what this is. So one plant will start to make several other plants. So it does create this perpetual replacement. Every few years though, you might want to check your crop if they're not producing as well. Strawberries tend to have a lifespan of 3 to 5 years, and then they stop producing berries as much. So you might periodically, when times are good, when we're not into an SHTF situation, you might want to periodically replace your crop. Number 11 is heirloom tomatoes. Now I'm going to recommend that you pick one variety that you like. You can keep more than one variety in seeds, but if you're growing one variety of an heirloom tomato, you don't want to grow another heirloom variety or any other variety nearby it, because it will cross-pollinate, and then you will defeat the purpose of growing heirloom tomatoes, which is you want consistency in terms of being able to save your seeds from season to season. So in other words, once you've got your, let's say you grow Brandywine tomatoes, which is considered one of the best tasting tomatoes, once you've grown your first crop of those, you're going to save your seeds, and that's going to be your seed stock for the following spring. So it becomes this, again, something that you can perpetually be self-sustaining with this. Pick whatever type of heirloom tomatoes you like and make that your go-to crop. Keep some backup seeds just in case there's a crop failure so that you're not completely out if something like that happens. All right, number 12, blackberries. Blackberries, like blueberries, have tons of antioxidants. They tend to come back year after year. They tend to spread on their own, which is great. Once you get them started, they'll just kind of do their own thing. And after a few years, you should have a pretty good supply of blackberries. They're also easy to propagate if you wanted to spread them around your property. And the blackberries themselves are going to add a little bit of morale boost for you when you need that little bit of sweetness. All right, folks, that was my recommendations for 12 survival crops that all preppers and homesteaders should be considering. Let me know down below what recommendations you have. You don't have to agree with the recommendations that I made. Obviously, I left off some honorable mentions, such as mushroom logs, such as heirloom peppers, green onions, cut and come again lettuce. But the idea with a homesteading garden and a survival garden is that it should be perpetual, should be something that you can continue to produce fruit and vegetables and root crops year after year after year with very little inputs from the outside world, right? So like once you've got it established, it should be basically self-sustaining with just a little bit of work. What have I left off of here? Obviously corn and wheat. My personal feeling is I can go without those, but you may feel like that those are essential crops for you. You do have to have some carbs in your diet, so that's why I recommend that you think about potatoes and sweet potatoes. But let me know down below what crops you recommend as part of your survival garden and why. All right. And also don't forget to check out that description for all of the channels in the 30 Days of Preparedness collaboration. Happy National Preparedness Month. And check out the discount codes and the sales and things like that I linked in there as well. Keep planting your seeds, keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.